You know, when we think of Leonardo da Vinci, we picture this perfect Renaissance man, right? A flawless genius. But that's not really the whole story. What we're going to talk about today is the story of a rebellious mind, a man who was living in the future but was totally haunted by his own limits.
I mean, think about that. Those were his dying words. This is the man who gave us the Mona Lisa, who dreamed up flying machines centuries before they were real, and he died feeling like a failure. That right there, that's the central mystery of his entire life.
So, that's the real question we're going to dig into. How could a mind so brilliant, so forward-thinking, end up convinced that it just hadn't done enough? Well, the answer starts in a life where pretty much every door was slammed shut in his face.
To get Leonardo, you have to go all the way back to the beginning, back to 1452. He was born an outcast, an illegitimate child in a society that had absolutely no idea what to do with him.
The world tried to put him in a box from the day he was born. See, as the son of a wealthy notary and a peasant girl, he couldn't legally take his father's name. He was completely barred from going to a university. He was banned from all the prestigious professions, like being a doctor or a lawyer. He was even denied a formal education in Latin and Greek, which were the languages of all knowledge back then. Basically, society looked at him and said, "You're not going to amount to anything."
But here's the thing. Because the world of books and formal education was closed to him, he just opened his own. Instead of reading dusty old texts, he read nature itself. He would dissect human bodies in secret just to figure out how the machine worked. He designed flying machines 400 years before the Wright brothers ever took off. He dreamed up armored tanks and submarines in an age of horses and swords. He just flat out refused to be defined by his limits, and in doing so, he ended up redefining what was possible for all of us.
For years, nature was his classroom, and his only teacher was his own power of observation. But eventually, this kid who learned everything on his own had to enter the world of men. And when he did, well, it was pretty obvious that a totally different kind of mind had just arrived on the scene.
So at 14, his father gets him an apprenticeship with Andrea del Verrocchio. Now, Verrocchio's workshop, this wasn't just some stuffy art school, no way. It was more like an innovation hub, a real factory of geniuses. There, Leonardo got his hands on painting, sculpture, metalworking, engineering. It was the perfect playground for his endlessly curious brain.
And this is the moment everyone knew he was something special. The story goes that Verrocchio asked his young apprentice to paint one of the angels in his big piece, The Baptism of Christ. And when Verrocchio saw the angel Leonardo painted, so lifelike, so luminous, he was apparently so humbled that he put down his own brush and never painted again. The student had officially surpassed the master. The future was here.
But here's where the story takes a turn. As Leonardo's fame started to grow, so did this huge conflict in his life. His unstoppable drive for understanding, for absolute perfection, it started to become his own worst enemy. It was like a prison he built for himself.
And we're not talking about minor sketches here. These were huge career-defining commissions. The Adoration of the Magi, this revolutionary painting he just walked away from. The Great Horse of Milan, a massive statue he studied for 17 years before it was destroyed. The Battle of Anghiari, a giant mural that literally melted off the wall because of a bad experiment. You start to see a pattern, a brilliant beginning, followed by distraction, obsession, and in the end, incompletion.
And to really get it, just think about his great rival, Michelangelo. They were complete opposites. Leonardo was elegant, patient, a slow and obsessive thinker who saw art as a science. Michelangelo, he was messy, angry, impulsive, a fast and furious worker who saw art as this divine struggle. But here's the crucial difference. Michelangelo finished his masterpieces. Leonardo often didn't.
It got so intense that the city of Florence put them in a direct head-to-head competition. They were hired to paint two massive battle scenes on opposite walls of the very same hall. I mean, this was the ultimate artistic showdown. And in the end, neither mural was ever finished. Leonardo's experimental paints failed him, and Michelangelo got called away to Rome by the Pope. The great battle ended in a draw, becoming this monument to two very different kinds of impossible genius.
But among all those unfinished projects, there was this one painting, one that he tinkered with for years, one he could never let go of. It was a simple portrait that became the ultimate expression of everything he was, his scientific curiosity and his artistic soul. Of course, I'm talking about the Mona Lisa. So to understand the Mona Lisa, you have to understand a technique he basically invented called sfumato. It literally means smoke in Italian. See, Leonardo hated hard lines and sharp outlines. He believed they just don't exist in nature. So he created this incredible way of painting with soft, hazy transitions, which made his subjects look unbelievably real, almost like you could see them breathing.
And this is exactly why it took him so long to paint anything. He would apply this incredibly thin, almost see-through layer of paint, and then he'd have to wait months for it to dry before he could add another one. We're talking dozens of layers, applied over years and years. This painstaking process is what gives the Mona Lisa that famous, misty, dreamlike quality. It's also why, in his mind, it was never really finished.
And her smile? Okay, this is where it gets really amazing. That's not just art. That's neuroscience. Leonardo understood how our eyes actually work. He knew that our peripheral vision is way better at picking up shadows than our direct sight is. So he painted the corners of her mouth with these soft, blurry shadows. When you look at her eyes, your peripheral vision catches the shadows around her mouth, and she looks like she's smiling. But the second you look directly at her mouth, poof, the smile vanishes. It's a scientific illusion that he painted right onto the canvas.
So after this long life of wandering, of running from unfinished projects and angry patrons, the final chapter of his story brought him something he never really had before: peace, respect, and a true sense of belonging.
Imagine this. He's 64 years old, he's tired, his right hand is paralyzed. He's a master with nothing to work on. And then, an invitation arrives from the young king of France, Francis I. And what the king asks for is just extraordinary. He doesn't ask for a painting or a statue, he just wants Leonardo's mind. He wants to sit and listen and learn from the great master.
The king gave him this beautiful chateau to live in and would visit him all the time just to talk for hours. And he called the old master mon père, my father. I mean, think about that. The boy who was denied the right to even carry his own father's name was now being called father by a king. His life had truly come full circle.
So when we look back at his entire life, we're left with this incredible paradox. The genius who could see everything, but who felt he had completed almost nothing.
Get this. In a career that spanned nearly 70 years, he finished only about 15 paintings. 15. It's a shockingly small number for one of the greatest artists in history.
But he also left behind over 7,000 pages of notebooks, and they're filled with sketches, deep scientific observations, and just endless questions. And that is his true legacy. The finished paintings were almost just a byproduct of his real work, which was this relentless, lifelong quest to understand everything.
Which brings us right back to where we started, to his final words. He wasn't seeing the 15 finished masterpieces. No, he was seeing the thousands of pages of unfinished questions, all the projects that could have been, the perfection that was always just out of his reach.
And that's really the final thought I want to leave you with. Was his obsession with perfection a curse that held him back? Or was that relentless, never-satisfied curiosity the very engine that made him a genius in the first place? Maybe that's the difference. A normal person is satisfied with what they've done, but a genius can only ever see what still remains to be discovered.